me tell you about Legend Seeker and how you can support its development while getting some awesome perks. By subscribing to our Legendary tier on YouTube or becoming a paid member on our Discord or Patreon, you'll get early access to all Legend Seeker lore and mechanics. This means you'll be among the first to dive into the world of Legend Seeker and give direct feedback that will help shape the game. But that's not all. Supporters will also be the first to playtest the system and will get exclusive invites to private streams where we discuss the game in detail. Your input will play a huge role in making Legend Seeker the best that it can be. Now, for those of you who love watching our tabletop role-playing game shows, supporting Legend Seeker comes with some fun bonuses for the casts. Here's how it works. If you are a Copper or Common member on Discord or Patreon, you can give a $20 benefit to a player of your choice. Silver and Uncommon members can give 2 benefits to 2 players of your choice. If you go the YouTube route, you can give a $50 benefit to a player of your choice. And for the ultimate support, Gold and Mythic members on Discord and Patreon give a $20 benefit to 3 players of your choice. You can choose from all casts across Moonskull. Every bit of support goes directly towards making Legend Seeker a reality. It helps fund the art, writing, editing, and eventual publishing of the game. So, if you want to be a part of this journey and support our shows, join our Legendary tier on YouTube or become a member on Discord or Patreon. We couldn't do it without you, and we're excited to build Legend Seeker together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the game. Hello, you chat bastards. Welcome to our Legend Keepers brainstorming stream. It is I, Erudi, and I've got my good buddy Froste here, my co-author. We're going to be talking about Legend Seeker lore brainstorming. This is going to be, listen, Froste will tell you firsthand. He's got a lot of questions and a lot of notes, and I am slow to respond to my DMs, so he has just been waiting for this opportunity to pounce and ask me all of the crazy things that he's been wondering for at least a couple months now. Ain't that right, Frost?
Nah, I got nothing.
Nothing? Oh, shit.
No.
This is going to be a short stream. This is going to be a short stream.
I have probably too many questions, so I'll try and tailor them. We'll go with that. Curate them. How about that?
Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty, and I'm sure we'll have questions in chat as well. But yeah, this is our first chance to really be on stream, and not like impromptu, like whenever I hop on the calls on my way to my federal office building. To actually kind of hang out and actually brainstorm and shoot off of each other and put some lore together. Frost is going to be writing his book in the background as we discuss. And he picks my brain and asks all the important questions, and we answer some of yours as well. But you guys, oh, you know what? I just realized it's not on the screen right now. Let me fix this. Boom. Actually, that didn't work. I'll fix it in a minute, but you guys might know that we are trying to go to MegaCon, and we are doing some fundraising. For some reason, the bar is not working, but I'll figure that out in a second. So if you guys happen to donate during this stream, at least $50, Frost and I will work with you right here live on screen to make you a little trinket, a little either mundane curiosity or magical little trinket that'll go on a list of trinkets once the advanced Keeper's Guide is released after the core set. So kind of like a little random treasure table of trinkets that players will ultimately see, and you can have a part in making what's going to be on that table. Also, there are other goals that are kind of being unlocked along the way. If you dedicate any of that to the Star Wars crew, they're in some dire straits right now over on Dawn of Defiance, and this will help over on Moonskull, help them survive that. Cowboy will come in and join the dogfight and maybe give them a fighting chance. And then, let's see, and then if we finish off our current tier, I mean, yes, I have to play some weird game where I have to be an e-girl or something and pretend to be Sevi for like 3 hours. But Chrysanth will get to play a chicken nugget MMO where you play as a nugget-shaped chicken character with like little headgear and stuff, and you go out questing as a little nugget in an MMO environment. So she'll be streaming that, and I know, chat, listen, I know you guys want to see that. So we should definitely make that happen. It's a multiplayer. You don't know what an MMO is, Chrysanth? Oh God. Okay. Well, it's a massively multiplayer online game, is what it is. Think World of Warcraft, but with nuggets. What do you think about all that, Frost? Which one are you looking forward to the most?
My gosh, I don't know. I mean, while I think it could be really entertaining to see her running around as a small, I guess, a chicken or whatever they look like, I just wonder how long it's going to be until she just runs her character into a lava field just to get it all over with.
I mean, she'll probably just do that anyways, but not on purpose. So it's probably bound to happen. Oh, she's gonna be so mad at me for that one. So mad at me for that one.
Don't know what that is either. Oh my goodness.
But Chrysanth, oh, I don't know. We're gonna figure that out. Chrysanth does have to sing a song, and there was a tie. I'm gonna guess Sevi's probably gonna be the tiebreaker on that, but maybe not. I'm not sure what their plan is because Sevi kind of set that particular little thing up. I will say it is nice, even though I'm still taking the bulk of it. It is nice to have somebody else for Sevi to make deals about, other than me. So Chrysanth gets about 5% of it now. I'm still taking the 95%, but that's okay. You know what? That's 5% less than last year for me.
You've got a flesh meat shield, so to speak,
Yes, a flesh meat shield, absolutely.
for 5% damage reduction.
Oh, did I tell you my idea to have the mums, our sentient plant race, refer to other races as flesh meats?
No. Wow.
Isn't that,
Okay.
isn't that an amazing idea? I think that's an incredible idea, don't you?
That's an idea. See, Chris Anth already said, I don't like you, Frost, right before that. So I'm like, that's an idea.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. But why don't you tell them what you're working on today, Frost?
I am working on, in the middle of all the other crazy stuff I was doing with the peoples and the factions, I am doing a little more information, like dumping on some of the areas currently in Fryland. So I'm writing up like what the Hinderwald is, the cities, because I have the cities, a lot of them named. There's no specifics on any of them. It's like, which one is this? Is this a capital? Is this a tiny village? What is this? So I'm trying to go through now and give them a little more flavor. So when people look at the map and whenever we get that drawn by a real artist, they'll look at it and say, oh, there's Greenhaven. Oh, that's the one from the Nuggets. Yeah. Or this is Göteborg. This is the big city in this place and what kind of a city it is. Just, the basics.
Fantastic.
That's what I'm doing.
Fantastic. I don't have access to his map, so you guys won't have that this time around. But it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with for sure. Did you, or chat, since you've got us both here, have any particular questions you wanted to brainstorm about? Anything you wanted to bounce off of my hard noggin up here?
Well, I know Dragon Noodle Soup had one about zombies. I don't remember what it was. I can't remember if it was related to the corpse effigy or if it was something else about zombies specifically. So maybe if he has that pop in, he can ask you. But I did have a question. Looking at, the stuff that I have been working on in the map, I'm placing, this and that down. I'm putting all kinds of stuff. I was going to ask, because now you have the timeline and we have a bunch of stuff. There was a name that you gave, I think, for what I am calling Lost Thalassia, the place that was Thalassa's, her beloved people, and that's the place that got destroyed by Grix. Was that Ilaris or Ilaria or something like that? You had a name for it, I think. But I'm trying to remember what that name was, or if that was referring to a different place.
I don't think I intended it to be Lost Thalassia. I mean, it could be tied to it. I didn't have any like concrete plans for it. It was just an event that I had wanted to occur because one of the things about Thalassa was she started out on Grix's side, during the war.
Yep.
And then, then when things changed and she ended up switching sides and things got personal. So I wanted motivations and reasons for that. So this was supposed to be a place that was highly devoted to her. So it could be part of Lost Thalassia or whatever you're calling it.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be though. It could literally just be a coastal town who was highly devoted to her.
Okay, because it's they had the area and it was the island off the coast, but they also had some land, so it could have been one of the cities that was right on the coast there, a really important city, and that could be exactly where I put it. Okay, that would make sense. One thing I think maybe I could do this. I'm gonna try and add a window capture behind me. I don't know how that's gonna come through, but we'll see what happens here. Um,
Well, if you get a window open that you can share using OB or VDO, I can put that instead of the document I have up, which is fine.
Wonder how that would work. Well, let me see if I can actually even get this to work because sometimes it doesn't like grabbing things from WonderDraft. So I got this, and if I were to put this, oops, I moved everything around. If I were to put this behind me, like if I okay, why is it? Oh my gosh, everything is just being stupid today. So if I were to take this and throw it, say, behind me, just as a I don't know, a source, I'll just go boop 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 boop, throw it behind me. I could have this up so people could see what I'm working on this way if we wanted to.
That
I mean, I could
too. Yeah,
I could resize it and just get rid of some of the
Yeah, that'll at least let
content.
them have a visual of the map, even if it's not a big one.
Yep. And I can zoom in and everything because it'll be a live capture. They can see everything happening behind my head. At least to see some of it, right? Right. And I can zoom in real far if you need me to. Because right now, what I was talking about is Lost Alasia was, the island and the archipelago out here that just completely got obliterated by Grix. But along this coast, totally, they would have had cities as well, and that could be where that city was at. Because I don't have any cities along here.
He could have been doing a whole assault on both sides of the coast there, trying to maybe like hit at two places at once or something like that. There's a lot of cool options that could have happened. Okay, I do see. Okay.
Because the Caustic Strand is the other place that he came through and destroyed, and basically destroyed. That's where they killed Xander's son and broke the temples and everything. So it would have been them going on through, destroying everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, they had they had plenty of things that they tore down, and it was 100-year war. Lots of things got ravaged and destroyed in lots of time. But I see Dragon Noodle Soup's question now. I'm going to move this over here so I'm kind of not sort of facing chat here. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Actually, I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to pop this out. I think I can do that. I'm going to put it up in my teleprompter. Oh, I'm so smart, chat. I do have the biggest brain. I knew it.
He's got a teleprompter, just like Mr. Biden.
Yeah, wow. Okay, not quite that bad. All right, so he's got two questions that are slightly different, and they both have similar themes but different answers. So the corpse effigy question is that the gods can only make soul forged, but people can make corpse effigies. I wanted an explanation on that. So I'm not sure which part you wanted an explanation of, but what I could do is at least separate those out so that what they are can be clarified. So the soul forged were a group of basically avatars or golems that Vulcan had made. And he had different purposes for them than what they ended up being used for. He was going to infuse them with magic, make magical constructs that were beautifully carved and whatever. They were supposed to be like a beautiful thing. Grix stole them, and then he tricked a group or a nation of people into offering them immortality in exchange for their servitude to him, and transfused their souls into these golems. And using his god powers and some of the pieces of creation and other aspects of magic that he discovered down in the Keeper's temples, he basically chained them into these constructs, making them more or less into a new being that had an artificial outside, but were also bound to his will. So that's the Soul Forged, and that was Grix's doing. That was a godlike level of power. A person could not normally do that. The corpse effigies are a little bit different. That is appealing to demons and doing some rituals and having demons on your behalf. So part of the lore for demons in our setting is that they want souls too, and souls generally are drawn to go to the afterlife in the nether realms, to go to one of the three layers depending on where they belong. And that's under Mordecai's, authority and what have you. demons want those souls too, and they use them as a fuel or a of a source of energy and power. They want those souls, so they're always trying to find ways to siphon them away from the material world. And a lot of demons, their whole entire purpose is to lure humans into making deals with them that gives away those souls, so they never go to the nether realms, and they instead go to the underside where the undergods are trying to build their empire and eventually invade into the material plane. So these corpse effigies, they're that particular. I can't remember which way I went with it. I had to go look at the lore text again because I had two versions of it I was weighing. But either it's infused by demonic magic, or they're actually using some of those stolen souls to power it in a necrotic way. So it's a construct that is necrotically energized. It's not the same as putting a soul with will, conscience, and being into a casing, which is what the Soul Forged are.
And they are gross looking.
They are very gross looking, yeah. So it's a demonic ritual, and the construct itself is quite malevolent between the necrotic energies and the terrible powers of the mana stream being malevolent itself, both just kind of fueling this thing. You control it for so long, but eventually you'll probably lose control of it because you're a human or an elf or whatever you are, and this is really beyond you, and it turns on you, kills you, and then just starts killing everything. Which is great because that's what the demons want. They want the souls to be harvested and what have you. And then his second question was in reference to zombies. The undead have been stated to not have souls, and so the undead, it's actually the opposite. So whenever you play D&D or Pathfinder, generally you're just animating a corpse. In my system, you're borrowing a soul from the devils and Adretus. You're borrowing a soul and using it to animate the body. And it's usually a soul of the damned. This is part of their punishment of their eternal life, is they have to endure this sort of thing. And there are two versions of this. There is the sanctioned version of it, which is through agents of Mordecai, and he's allowing this to occur. But then there is the other side of it, which is going to be anybody who's not a servant of Mordecai. They have unsanctioned souls. So they have used some sort of magic to steal and borrow a soul, or they've made a deal with a devil, and the devil's using like loopholes down there to proffer this or give this soul to the individual that they're not supposed to have. And Mordecai abhors that kind of undead. He abhors the undead that's lost, so the ones that never made it to the nether realms and went mad. And he also hates the ones that are artificially procured from the nether realms by people who aren't supposed to have them. So that's why he has the Ebon Sentinels, for example. That's his paladin order. They go down and they hunt the unsanctioned undead. But those who serve Mordecai, so clerics of Mordecai, paladins of Mordecai, can have undead, and they will have a very special runic marking on their head that clearly signifies this is an approved undead from Mordecai, and therefore it is allowed and it's okay.
So would you think that other creatures or other beings that aren't in that paladin order, say like you had... I don't know. I was writing something up about a coven of hags that are like unpleasant, but they could do, things for people. And they have like the idea of the black cauldron for being able to either create undead or bring people back, but having that sort of thing sanctioned by Mordecai? Or do you think that that would be something that would never be sanctioned by Mordecai, and they would be in league with, say, demons? So if they're like bringing your loved one back, your person's not really coming back. They're like, oh yeah, here, let's put one of these damn souls in their person's body. Good luck.
Yeah, he would probably never sanction anything that's outside of his order. Okay. So hags and the like would probably never be someone he'd be like, oh yeah, that's fine. Unless it was like some sort of moment of convenience type thing. If there was a bigger threat and it was like, right now your enemy's your ally kind of deal. But nah, generally speaking, he would probably never sanction anything outside of his clerical or paladin order.
Okay, makes sense. That would be kind of, it would be fitting and it would make sense. That way we can keep some of the evil people being, well, evil and not really delivering on the promises they're making, which makes them nice and evil.
Yes. So that's kind of the idea, and it does give because one thing about games like D&D or whatever, necromancy tends to be aligned with evil always, and that's fine. And then you have players that want to be necromancers, but it always draws ire on the party or it feels out of place. This gives a lore reason to actually allow that sort of thing. So if you want to play as a necromancy cleric or paladin, you can, and it can be sanctioned if you're devoted to the right god. And people might be grossed out by it. They might even be offended by it in some cases because, hey, what are you doing to our loved ones and their corpses? But at the end of the day, they know it's sanctioned by a god and it's not an evil act that you are performing.
So is that like if they brought, you know, brother Bob back and made him a zombie for a while, would it be brother Bob's soul literally back in his body,
It's
or would
somebody
it
else.
be
It's somebody else's soul from the damned being put into a corpse. The corpse has no relation to the soul anymore.
okay? So no, there'd be like 0% chance that it would be like, oh my god, Dad.
I mean, I guess it's possible. It's possible that Uncle Bob was also damned and his soul just randomly got called up into his own body, but highly unlikely. Highly unlikely.
Okay, all right, yeah, that could be a very uncomfortable situation where it's like the zombies like moving, going, Cletus, Dad. Okay, that would be uncomfortable.
Or even funnier if it was like in the opposite bodies, but it's the same people.
Oh, jeez. Freaky Friday with zombies. Got it.
Yeah. Dear God.
Okay. Are you going to have a girdle of femininity, masculinity in the game?
That is not intended to be in any books at the moment. But who knows what the audience might want in the future.
Yeah. By the way, can people hear me? Because I know my sound is a lot lower than it was earlier. For some reason, it randomly dropped my sound from 75% on my microphone to 33%.
You sound good to me.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, good. All right. So it looks like the video is got it taken care of. Excellent.
Zombie animals are a little bit different because, well, at least as it currently stands, in Legend Seeker, animals don't have souls. So they are creatures and they exist and they're alive, but they don't have an afterlife in the same way that we do. So something like a hairless kennel is more of a regional effect, where they're using necrotic energies and using the mana stream to physically puppet a creature's body and using them almost more as a familiar. So hairless kennels can actually see through their little familiar's eyes and go steal things and trinkets and whatever. So it's a little bit different, but it doesn't use the process of souls.
Got it. Animals have no souls.
They might have 9 lives, but no souls.
Bam. So which if you thought like about, like, say, because we talked about Kika and we talked about Grix being kind of the overlords of the good and the bad versions of the lycanthropy groups, like Grix, his contribution was, I'm gonna make all these cool things. Oh, okay, well, they're all evil and horrible, but hers would be the more good version of lycanthropes. I don't know which ones are good, honestly. Is that something that you still want to kind of explore?
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting idea because I do like the idea that they're opposite sides of a spectrum, and that
because they're the moons also.
They're the moons, and also they're siblings. Siblings sometimes have a little competitive nature, and I think that played a lot into it because originally she didn't foresee what he was going to become. So a lot of these things that happened, werewolves initially weren't inherently an evil lycanthrope, right? Things like that, because Grix wasn't seen that way at the time. It was just, haha, I'm making these, haha, you're making those. And the same thing with like the Jabberwock, right? He was trying to make a dragon in his image, and as a prank, she kind of, sprinkled in her own little magic and fucked with it. And then he ended up with this lumpy, misshapen looking thing. He got pissed off, stormed off, and it ended up just being her adopted creature. So kind of the same thing. Eventually, the creatures that owe Grix for their condition and their what will eventually be known as a curse is linked to him, so they become inherently evil.
Yeah. Well, and so when we're talking about that spark, the divine spark, and the spark of life, and everything, pretty much anything created by the gods and the keepers that way would be something that has a soul. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, something that's used from that would probably have a soul. So especially something that's going to be sentient and have a civilization and have the ability to create themselves and what have you. Those things are going to have souls.
Okay, makes sense. All right. So then it would make sense. Then it is. And I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole. When you think of, like, say, kobolds and dragons and whatnot, or not dragons, but kobolds and goblins and stuff, they have souls
Yep. Yep.
because they were created by one of the
They
gods or at some
they
point.
are a race. They are sapient, and they do have souls. They do have an afterlife. They have all of that. So
Yeah.
when you go to Legend Seeker Hell or Heaven, you'll see all types there that aren't just the normal civilized races. They'll all be there. Yeah, most of them, because in our system, monsters will be monsters. They're probably going to end up in Infernus because they're not good creatures by any nature. They are just naturally evil. That's where they're going to end up.
Nice.
So ghosts and undead zombies are a little bit different. I don't know that. So the way ghosts and banshees and those type of things come about and how they exist, they're not summoned per se. You can summon them in the sense of, hey, I'm doing a seance and I'm calling them to me, that kind of thing. But they tend to be in the world because they never went to the afterlife. So a ghost is a soul that never followed the road, never got picked up by one of Mordecai's. What's the word? The word for an emissary that acts on their behalf. I'm blanking on it right now.
Psychopomp?
Yeah, thank you. Psychopomp. Never found them, or they just refuse to go with them. Over time, undead who don't go to the afterlife go mad. So ghosts are kind of the early phase of that. Banshees are like the long-term phase of that. They've gone like completely feral. The mana stream's corrupted them. They're feral undead, and they're beyond redemption at that point, and Evan Sentinels hunt them down. They just have to be destroyed. They can't go to the afterlife anymore at that point. So a necromancer is probably not summoning a ghost, whereas putting a soul into an undead body temporarily, just to animate it, is a different thing.
Makes sense.
What?
I read the dog backwards as God.
Yes, I just did. It's hard to argue that logic, Barney. It really is.
Nice.
Dragons have souls. Dragons are sentient beings. They are not animals. They have language. They are the first children of the gods. In fact, they're the first race to ever exist. So yeah, they definitely have souls.
Nice. Is what, because we're talking about that stuff, and we talked about how the soul forged are trapped in those bodies and whatnot in their souls. When I suppose then when the a soul forge, when it's stilled, when they sit there, they're still there in their body. Their soul hasn't gone anywhere. They're still sentient. They could actually wake back up. But once one is destroyed, then their soul actually goes on, right?
Yep. Then their soul is freed and can return to the afterlife. That is correct.
Yep. And the reason that they obviously don't go mad is because a god did have a part in trapping their soul in this vessel that is not their original body.
And it's for all intents and purposes, it's their body now. So they still exist. They're just kind of eternally there. And it's not to say they can't go mad. It's just a different kind of madness, right? So ghosts and wraiths are literally going mad because they're not going where they're supposed to be in the afterlife, and they have a very strong connection to magic and the divine, and the mana stream over time corrupts them until they're insane and they're malevolent. Whereas a soul forged who maybe shuts down and just stays trapped in his own mind essentially for years could still be mad. It just won't be for the same reason.
Yeah. Well, and I have decided, or I don't know if I did decide, where I made the Mordecai's throne and that was the spot where we talked about a few different things, and that was where people were like, oh, that's where Mordecai does this stuff. But really, it was Grix who was kind of messing around with looking into the afterlife or the underworld because he wanted to see, was Seneth there, and
Mhm.
all of the questions he had. But it's still a very like a place where that veil is thin. And I'm trying to decide. I was gonna maybe put it into the area of the Soul Spire somewhere, because I have this plate called the Silent Erete, where there's a mountain bowl and there's like thin mountainous, hills where a lot of the stilled Soul Forge will go, and they'll just stand there and they will just stop moving, looking down over this valley. And I'm thinking that maybe that's where I might put that tarn, that dark lake in Mordecai's seat. And so for them, it's like there's the afterlife, or at least I think that's where the afterlife is. I wish I could get there, and they just still themselves and just basically stand there forever, staring at it until they're destroyed. A little creepy.
It is a little creepy. It's the ones that go still because the things that they were so horrified that they did and things. Maybe they just kind of go catatonic, but they're still there. They're still in there.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's where we have the one druid that's the legendary character. She was basically that way until Arendor basically, worked with her and nurtured her back into thinking about life, and that's why she's now the wandering kind of Johnny Appleseed of creating life in the destroyed areas of the world, and leads that druidic order.
yeah, absolutely. And I'd imagine she probably even has some caretaking duties of her own, where she maybe tries therapy with some of we'll call them the still for now. I don't know if we have a name for what we want to call still soul forged. Um, but and maybe she hopes to do the same that was done for her, and get some of
Mm-hmm.
them to realize they're okay. Do some therapy with them through their absence. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that could be
Um,
fun, and I can't wait until the first player in the world goes and sits on Mordecai's throne, and then gets whatever you want to have happen to him.
yeah, and to explain also too. Yeah, this is gonna be wild when they do that for the first time. Um, for the Soul Forge too, it's a bit of a prison sentence. They in the history, so the elves had to reverse engineer what Grix did to them. So the elves are kind of, in a way, bad guys in this particular story because they reverse engineered it and they figured out how to undo the whole thing. They figured out
Yeah.
how to both break their chains and their obedience to Grix, but also to free them from their prisons inside of these constructs, and possibly even return them to their prior forms. And the elves were so prejudiced against the Soul Forge for everything they had done to them throughout this entire 100-year war, they only broke the chains and then hid the knowledge of how to do the rest as like a punishment to these people. Um, so yeah, it's not fun for them. It's not fair for them. I can definitely tell you that.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about this is you have people and creatures of different groups who will make decisions that you're like, wow, that's really dark. And like, well, they had a lot of bias against them. These things did horrible things, even though they weren't in control of anything. And you can't really get away from that. I mean, the elves, for one thing, had a little problem with the dragons being the firstborn, and kind of have always had a chip on their shoulder about it from what
Mhm.
you've written. So yeah, they're like, we know better than all of you. We're
Yeah,
the
they,
elves.
they see the initial decision to even align with Grix to begin with, to trust him was folly and stupid and deserving of this fate. So like they're very haughty and very they have long memories and they don't forgive and forget easily.
Yeah.
Um, so that is something that is out there, and who knows, that could come into play story wise down the road, but that is a part of the history. Um, can you go into detail about what makes certain magics like divine good or evil in nature? So really, divine magic is an exclusive element of the gods. Nobody else technically has access to it directly. That is divine is divine. If you're a god, that's when you have access to that stuff. The mana stream is the only kind of magic that a mortal has access to, and it is by nature malevolent. Nobody knows why. That's one of the kind of mysteries of the universe. And one philosophy I'm going to tell you guys up front about Legend Seeker, I don't want to explain everything. I think too many settings and like shows and things nowadays try to get too technical and explain everything down to the T, and I think that takes away a lot of the mystery and a lot of the magic about how the universe works, and it also restricts you in a lot of ways too, if you write yourself into a hole. So I really try to stay away from getting way too into the nitty gritty. Some things just happen because of how they happen. But in this case, it's malevolent. They don't know why it's that way, but whenever you tap into the raw nature of the mana stream, there's just something destructive, and there's an undercurrent of malevolence under it. And being overexposed to it can actually corrupt you over time, and you can become puppet to its will. You're not even in control anymore. So a lot of using magic is being practiced and reserved about how much of the mana stream you tap into, how often you use it, where are you channeling it through. Most people, as a practice, don't channel it through themselves. They have some sort of focus, an object, a familiar, or a patron, or somebody who's absorbing the brunt of that for them so that they can access the magic more often. Very few, including the monks in our system. The monks have access to psionics and telekinetic magics and things like that. They're one of the few who literally run the mana stream through themselves, and they have very strict codes about it because of that. So it's just malevolent. When it comes to divine magic, casters who use divine magic are using the mana stream to essentially borrow divine magic and use its power from the gods. So divine magic is by its nature good, in a sense, I guess, but it's not always, because some gods are evil. It's just divine. I would say probably radiant magic would probably be something, if we're going to use like a damage type, would be something associated with good. But divine magic in of itself is not necessarily good.
Yep, because people will come up with their own rationale, their own thoughts, their own whatever, and like even in like Call of Duty for zombies, the guys at Treyarch would do that. They're like, they'll put a thing in, and people will be like, "Huh, I wonder why that happens," and then people will come up with these crazy theories, and everyone's like, "Well, we never came up with the idea for it, but that crazy fan theory, pretty fun." And then they'll use
good,
it
yeah.
in a later thing. They're like, "This is what you guys thought was cool.
There it is." Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a lot of you don't need to know everything. And like there's questions even I have intentionally that people just don't know the answer. The keepers, nobody really knows anything about them. They know that they were there. They know that they've left some temples behind with clues as to their existence and some of their secrets and technologies and things like that. Nobody knows what they look like. The only four who've ever had direct interaction are the four main gods, the original four gods. And they never speak about the keepers, and they don't explain why. They don't give an explanation. They just don't talk about them. Could be any reason, and that's up to there's a lot of theorem behind it in the world. Even amongst the lower pantheon of gods, there's a lot of gossip and theory about that, but nobody really knows the answer. Nobody knows the real nature or why it is that way of the mana stream. So there's a lot of stuff like that is it's left vague on purpose, because there should be an air of mystery and discovery in the world, and not everything needs an answer.
I like it. Let's see. One thing I was going to ask you is, for creatures, I know we talked about all kinds of different creatures and things and stuff here and there. Are you going to include some of the, I guess, iconic, things that are from mythology, like unicorns, things like that? Are you going to have, unicorns are always good? Is there like an evil unicorn to the dark elves when they happened? Did that underside, are there dark unicorns, stuff like that? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So the underside for sure is a twisted reflection of everything that was on the material plane. So you'll see a lot of mimicry over there, and you'll see some things that were just so twisted beyond recognition you would never even know what they originally were born from. But yeah, so you'll definitely see some of that, and then yeah, of course we're going to have a lot of. I'm working on the Tome of Threats now. And there's going to be stuff in there. You got Barghest, you're going to have unicorns, you're going to have goblins. Those things all exist in our universe. And a lot of it's me saying, okay, do I want it to be totally classic trope, or do I want to put a little bit of a spin on it for this universe? And I've been kind of doing a little of each. So some things are pretty standard, like, yep, that's a goblin. Yeah, you know a goblin when you see a goblin. And then some of it, we're taking a slightly different approach with it, like, for example, like we're doing with demons. So it just kind of depends. Vampires even kind of work the same, but where they come from and why they exist is different. Their purpose for existing is different.
Yeah, and that's fun because that'll keep players on their toes. They won't all be like, it won't immediately, though people will get to that point where you're like, okay, you see a thing coming down, it has a beak and these things, and you're like, oh, people are like, oh, a glab resume. Like, damn it, they know exactly, they know its hit points, they know exactly how much armor it has, they know all its weaknesses. Like, oh man. So you get
Yeah.
to challenge them a bit with things. You're like, you see a bunch of little things coming at you, and you're like, oh, they're small and they all have knives. They seem really confident. Should we be worried? Why do they seem so confident?
Yeah, so there's a lot of that, and then of course we're doing original monsters too. But I'm trying to do a bit of. My goal is for Legend Seeker to be kind of a one-stop shop for people who are trying to get away from the systems for people who hate them, right? And the problem is nobody's really offering that in our space. Period. Even like the bigger name people who've had success. For example, take Dungeon Coach's D20 system. He's only got a system. He doesn't have a bestiary really. He made like a few converted monsters in a PDF. He doesn't have a setting, though I think he's thinking about working on one now. Doesn't really have big adventures. Made like a handful of one shots as bonuses for his Kickstarter. There's only that, right? Neon with Clownfish, I believe their system Adventure Engine is literally just a system. If you go on Kickstarter, half the books on there are just settings, or they're just monster manuals, or there's not a lot of places where you can go where boom, in one purchase, you've got a system, a setting, and a bestiary ready to go to replace the universe you're playing in. So that's kind of the goal of what I'm trying to do here, is make something that people can step into. It's a fully lived in, breathing system with lore that they can dive into, that has some things that are familiar. So you're not coming into something that's just totally alien to you, but also still has a lot of new and a lot of mystery.
Yeah, nice. Also, unicorn milk and cheese. No, ew.
Oh God.
I don't know. Yeah, dragon noodle soup. I would think no, but I don't know. Erudi might have an idea of whether or not there could be ways to achieve godhood outside of apotheosis. I would say probably not. But
yeah, so right now, and this is actually in the timeline that I gave Frost, and this is something we haven't put into any of our Patreons or anything like that yet. So this part of history we haven't talked about at all. But there were some mistakes made along the way in regards to this. So yeah, is the god of agriculture, hunting, and he was originally a mortal, and he was directly given godhood by Arendor. There's another god that we have not revealed yet. There are some other ones on the way, who also was given godhood. But whereas Nya had used his power responsibly and upheld what they hoped he would be, the other one did not. He abused his power and actually did some pretty terrible things with it, and self-indulged. And after that happened, they realized, okay, maybe we shouldn't just be giving things to people who haven't proven themselves and deserve it. So they came up with something that we haven't named yet, but it's basically a place they have to go through a sort of crucible, and if they come out the other end of it successful, they have earned their wings, so to speak. So they got to do great deeds in the first place to even get the honor of trying for this, but then this crucible of sorts will test their mettle, their soul, and their intent to a very high degree, and if they come out on the other end successful, then they will achieve apotheosis. And they're very tightly controlled on that now. The gods have they had two pools of energy, and again, this is not something that's like deeply explained mechanically, or there's no scientific. We're not going into like midichlorians about it, but they had a pool of energy that they used for creation of beings, and then that was called the spark of creation. And then they had energy that they use for creating other gods. This is what the original four gods had to create the ones they have now, called the spark of divinity. And they got overly hungry with the spark of creation. They didn't realize that this is actually a finite resource, and they drained it. It's gone. They can't create any more just creatures or beings. So then they realize, well, wait a minute, if that's finite, our spark of divinity is probably finite too. So they're being a lot more careful with that. So someone who's like really earned it and then goes through the crucible would then get that. It's not something that's typically available to just anybody to grab. through studying books or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, it's good to have those kind of things in place, even if you don't specifically call a lot of things out, because um, any DM anywhere can just say, well, yeah, that's fine. That's what the rules say. But I'm going to do this. And that's great. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
People take the rules and they're like, I love the framework you have, but I'm going to add boop. And then they do a thing, which is fun.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah. Obviously, the setting and the rules there are for you to play around in, but what you do at your table is what you do at your table. All right, you decide you you want combat wheelchairs in your Legend Seeker setting. By all means, you can do that at your table. We won't be doing it officially, but you can do it, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. So, Dragon Noodle Soup, one of the gods that did die was Senna, but nobody knows exactly what happened because she's the goddess of transformation. And when she fell, it changed the earth and everything there, but nobody's exactly sure what happened. And
There's
when Ari,
of,
the son of Xander, was killed, they built a tomb and a hill, and he has a massive barrow in the hills that nobody really wants to ever approach because, you know, that's where supposedly a demigod died. Who knows what's in there? If you want to be foolish and dig it up, you know, you may have to answer to Xander.
Yeah, and the other thing to note, our gods are not omniscient, and they're not even the most powerful beings in the known universe, right? The keepers are above them, and who knows if there's anything above the keepers? They don't know. So there's questions they don't even know the answer to. They have no idea what it wasn't a problem before. They're immortal, and they didn't have the ability to kill each other. Those things didn't exist. They didn't have the energies, the magics, or the power to unmake each other. So they never had to question, well, what happens to us after we die? Do we have souls? They don't know. They genuinely don't know. So when Senna was killed, that's why there was such a nerve struck. One, they never thought they could die. You know, they've kind of grown vain and self-absorbed and felt untouchable. But then two, is there anything beyond for them? They don't know. So there's a lot of questions about what happened to Senna and if there any part of her still exists somewhere. Why are her priests and stuff that were dedicated to her before? Why do they still have access to her magics? Is it just like the lingering remnants of her energy and eventually that'll deplete? Is that a forever thing? Is she still somewhere? They don't know. Or is there something more nefarious to it? Is something else feeding them energy that isn't actually Senna? So these are all theories that have been kind of circulated throughout the many circles in the religious doctrine of what's currently Erudia.
If people have arguments, and that's the thing I wrote up about that the legendary cleric. You know, the people who came before him had their own ideas of what they were doing. They're like, well, nobody can really tell us what's right or not right. We can do whatever we want. And he's got a very different mentality, and now he's hunted by them around the world because they're like, we don't want you spreading whatever truth you're trying to spread or falseness or whatever it is. So they're hunting him, and he's also demonstrating that he's got power. So it's like, who's right?
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and then Dragon Noodle Soup had a good question too. During the God Killer War, some of the gods would have died, but the thing that could kill them probably got rid of the bodies, right? There was only one god killed, and her body is gone.
Yep. And the demigod who was killed, well, he was a demigod, so he wasn't technically a god.
Yeah, so his body was mutilated and destroyed by this ungod making energy. And this weapon that Grix had acquired through what he claims, you know, he found a temple with ancient knowledge, and he actually found a keeper there and acquired knowledge from him of how to make this energy that could unmake gods and then translate it into a weapon. When he was imprisoned, when they entombed him, that was a prison made of gods' energies, and those two magics weren't very compatible. So one of the things that happened was the energy that was in him kind of escaped out of the prison and then, like in shards, just disappeared out into the world. So there are pockets of that energy. There are weapons infused with it. So there are now legendary, archaic, artifact-type weapons that are out there that can actually hurt and kill gods. And so this is part of the reason, besides seeing the effects of their meddling, that they've retreated into their own little pocket spaces, their own dimensions. They're not safe among mortals anymore. a mortal who finds this kind of energy or these kind of weapons could potentially kill them. So things are very different out there now, and this is why the gods don't walk among them. This is why they have a policy of only intervening under the most dire of circumstances. This is why there is a godly court to make decisions together instead of, things like Grix did by himself.
Yeah. He made some great choices.
He did.
I enjoyed it all. Yeah.
And everything he tried to do, he had a lot of hubris, and he thought he had more knowledge and craftiness and power than he actually had, and he would try to understand these ancient secrets of the Seekers and these weapons and these things that they left behind for other purposes, and he never quite understand them correctly, and it would always misfire. Something would always go wrong, and it usually was at the cost to somebody else other than himself.
Yep. And there isn't, and Dragon Noodle Soup was asking, there is no god of magic. There's specifically not a god that's like, I am the god of magic. My name is Pete.
There's no god of magic in and of itself.
The mana stream is its own beast.
Yes, gods have access to magic, and they do delve in it a lot. They have a pretty strong resistance to it, but even they are not fully immune to it. Grix is the only deity with the alignment true evil, because we have good, neutral, and evil as alignments, but then there is true evil, and true evil is somebody who's been corrupted and fully taken over kind of by the mana stream. Your will has become fully malevolent. So Grix is, he's tapped into it so much and played with so many secrets of the keepers and things like that. He's nothing like the god he originally was. He is something entirely different at this point.
I'm writing up stuff about cities and stuff. I got a question for you. I know you were talking because there's not going to be a keeper's tome at the beginning when people do stuff. One of the things I know a lot of people like doing, and I'm of two minds because some parties love this, some parties hate it, is shopping. Is having a list of everything and how much it costs and having the thing out there, like, because there's always a rule to check, and you look in the rule book and you're like, okay, we got 7 long swords and we got 2 daggers and we got 5 suits of armor. We're going to take it back to town. How much should we get? Then there's always, okay, just a minute. Okay, 7 of these. That's this much, blah, 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 blah. Is that something that's just gonna, like normal, come down to the DM saying, yeah, you got 112 worth of gold. I did all the math for you already. Or is it going to be a role-playing thing where people are like, well, how much could I get? They don't even have a specific amount listed in the book. I don't know which way you're thinking about that. I know it's a deep question, kind of, but
so we'll have charts of all the weapons and equipment, and they'll have their gold price and their sell price, and the sell price will be about a quarter of what the item was originally worth.
Okay, cool. So you put that in the table?
Yeah, so you can literally just look at the table and be like, okay, this is what a shopkeep would sell it for. Cool. Now, some DMs will ignore that. Players want to haggle, things like that. I hate shopping episodes and trips, and I run private games, and my players know that. I'm not even shy about it. I run the game for them. Obviously, they're paying me to be there. If they want to do shopping trips, we'll do them, but I abhor them. I can't stand it. It's just like, just give me the items. Here's the gold you're going to get. Do we really have to role play the whole damn thing? But some people love that. They enjoy that experience, I guess, and all the more power to you. So, again, you have options. You don't have to use the chart, but it's a real quick way to just make those shopping episodes a lot faster. So, hopefully it helps.
Nice. I like the idea of having the sell price right there, because everybody wants to know all that, but sometimes people are doing the math. They're like, wait, how much should we? Wait, what? Because this is a big city, so we should get a little bit more as opposed to a small city. And it can get just.
I just leave it straight at the sell price. There might be now there will be some things that can come into play if you have a noble in your party and they have the connections talent or something like that. They might, when they sell items, get a certain percentage more than what's in the Seeker's rulebook listing. So those options do exist, but ultimately it's up to the DM if they want to allow the haggling and all that. I'm not a big fan of it. This is also it's a high magic setting in the sense that there's magic everywhere, obviously. But in terms of magic items, it is a low magic setting. There aren't magic shops sitting around in our cities. It doesn't really exist.
Oh, I can't go to the wand store. Dang it.
Yeah, so you're not gonna be walking around just buying magic items. So DMs don't have to worry about that question anymore. If there are magic items in the city, it's going to be in the hands of a prior adventurer, a noble, or something that has like a collection, or there might be a shop that's acquired an item that happened to come into their shop or something like that. But there's no like dedicated. I'm going over here. This is the shop that has all the enchanted and magic items. Because I think loot should be earned, and I think you should go out in the world, you find the loot, and if there's a particular thing you're looking for, if you've got the gold, track it down, or if you've got the ability, craft it yourself and put in the time and effort for it. But this idea of I don't like how some of the systems have, you go to a magic shop and they have 1d10 magic items from this chart, and this chart, and it's just like, and then what you get is players making wish lists, and it makes shopping episodes even longer, and I am not a fan of that, so I'm not really planning to put it in my game.
We I know it's in D&D. I think it's in some other systems too. They say if you're making characters at 10th level, you should have this many magic items per these different like rarities per character per thing. So they're like, if you have a party of this many people, here's a checklist of how many they should have and how much money they have. That was a nightmare when my friends and I started the Vecna thing. We're like, wait, because our DM's like, okay, you should have this many and this many and this many. Everybody was trying to pick out a few things and coming up with it. And then we realized they're like, oh, we overpicked by 1 or 2 or whatever. And it came down to our DM just saying, okay, you're not going to have one of these. You got one of these. You got one of these. It was much simpler than going through and trying to do this mechanical checklist for everything. I was like, it's good to have guidelines, but it's just so tedious.
Yeah, it's very tedious. High level play is obviously a different animal. You are an experienced adventurer. You probably should have some things. I'd probably just give a gold value per level, and that should align you with the power of the equipment, anyways. And that should keep it pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I would probably as if I was doing it, I would say each level has X amount of gold to spend on magic items, legendary items not allowed, because obviously those are things that are like one-ofs out there. 5 people shouldn't have this legendary item.
Yeah, and so then I guess that makes me ask another question. When it comes to like treasure, like you were saying, you'd have charts and whatnot that you can roll on if people want to roll, or they could pick for creating magic items. That's always another weird system that you can go into such detail that is pointless, and all it does is make you have to do a bunch of math. And have you been playing around with that, working on it, coming up with an idea or even a rule set for it yet?
So I'm going to be saving the magic item crafting probably for the Keeper's Guide, and see how things work out. But when the Seeker's Guide comes out, there's not going to be a system in place for that yet. I don't even know if I want the crafting of magic items to be a thing at all. Unless it's like potions, that sort of thing, or enchanting items. But it gets wonky. I feel like I've never really seen a crafting system I like. The closest actually has been Savage Worlds. That's probably Savage Pathfinder's been the closest to a system I think is okay. And theirs is just straight up, you take a normal item and you have X number of points to spend. Here's what each trait costs in points. Make an item out of it.
Right.
And that seems pretty straightforward. I don't mind that so much. But then the items that are like truly exceptional, the wondrous and legendary items and stuff, don't follow that rule set at all. They are very clearly well out of the scope of whatever that system was. So then players are like, well, why can't I make that? And that's when you make a crafting system like that, you always. I don't like systems that force you to have to argue with your players and bargain with your players.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really get turned off by shopping. That's why I get turned off by crafting. And hey, you allowed this one time. You're not going to do it. I hate that stuff. So for me, it's just like I would rather things just be you find them, they're wonderful. How are they made? This is more of like how did the Egyptians build the pyramid kind of thing. Wow, this item's amazing. Why can't we even make this stuff anymore? Where did that knowledge get lost? I like that kind
Yeah.
of environment a lot more.
Yeah. Well, and I don't remember if I shared this with you, but I had written up an idea that I had, and I'll reshare it with you. That magic items in this world could easily, like when you look at somebody picks up a sword and they're like, "Oh my God, this is from the ancient area. This is from the War of the Scales. This was made to kill dragons." And you look at it, you're like, "This is a masterwork. This is astounding, and it's beautiful." And it's like you can tell this is a part of the timeline it was from. You'd be able to tell if you came across a weapon that was from, say, the God Killer era. The beauty and the wonder and the craftsmanship is not really necessarily there because they're like, we're in a war for reality and everything. They just churned out whatever they could, and they just made everything, and it was all mass produced. It was beautiful in the sense that it was like, hey, this is a really nice sword, but we had to make 100 of them. So we couldn't spend a lot of time making them all really nice. So you're going to
Yeah.
get a serviceable magical blade that's like, hey, well, it's wartime. You stamp them out, you make a lot of them. And then you get to the post war era, and almost nobody makes anything anymore. Because, for one thing, people don't know how. The gods are gone. Maybe the inspiration's gone a little bit, but everyone's like, should we be putting our work into that? Well, we have other things we should be doing.
Yeah,
So,
I sort of like the idea that Vulcan, because of the war against Grick, was providing a lot of these magical weapons from his forge, but now
yeah.
he's retreated, and that's why there's no more really being introduced into the setting.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think that could be very fun, especially because I had literally just said ancient era, but now that you've gotten a bunch of good things in the timeline, like the War of Scales and this part, you could say this sword is from around this period of time. It's during this war or this place or something, and you can say different things about it, and you can look at it and say, "Wow, yeah, that's a really nice item. It must be old."
it must be old. That's about right. All right, I'm gonna be, and there could be some also ways of getting items that would be not necessarily from craftsmanship, but just curses and raw enchantment, deals with demons, things like that. That could
Yeah,
also create weapons that aren't necessarily god infused, but would be out of the hands of a normal mortal to ever craft something that amazing. But I'm gonna be right back. I forgot I ordered
okay.
food and it's sitting outside getting cold.
You should go get that.
Be
Go eat
back.
your food. Well, don't eat it, but go get it at least. Erudi just sitting outside his door, eating the food. All right, I'm coming up with a city name here because this place, if you can see, let's move it aside so you can see past my head here. This little village, which is not really a village, called Aldholm, is technically the ruins of an old fort, the fortress, because there's one down here that was a little bit of a fortress that the elves had, but this was a little border fort on the coast, or a coastal fort that guarded the city that used to sit astride this delta here. But that was all inundated and destroyed, and it's no longer there. So I've got to come up with this city name because I had a city name and now I can't find it. So I'm going to go back up to I've got to go to Agrium. There's Las Vidlara, Dwarven Harbor, Mount Silveron. Where is it? I'm losing my mind here. Where did I put it? I've got too many pages in this document. What have you all done to me? I wrote too many things. That's Senna's Fall. Veil of Glass. No, that's Las Valara. Agrim. Here we go. I had a little bit of notation here. There we go. There's the thing I needed. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. All right. Oh my gosh, what is this? That's not what I wanted. There we go. Etymology. All right. Nope, that's not going to work. Oh, okay, here we go. I'm looking up some Latin words here because I needed to find out if this is.
Man, I'm not pleased.
No? What did they do to you?
They didn't even take the food up to my door. They put it in a pile of
Nope.
snow next to my mailbox, so it is like ice damn cold. Like they put it in a snowbank.
Well, it's a cold food, right? Right?
I mean, part of it is, the other part isn't.
Well, now it is. Oh boy. That really sucks.
Yeah, that sucks a lot.
It's like well, I was telling you about the McDonald's that I ate today because my neighbor ordered McDonald's and then he called me and said he got called into work because his wife is out of town. He's like, hey, by the way, I got McDonald's delivered and it's just sitting at my house and it just got delivered. I forgot that I ordered it because I got called to work. He does like emergency IT or something. He's like, just go grab it if you want it. You just don't worry about it. You know, if you want some free McDonald's. And I was like, well, I don't really eat McDonald's, but I'll go get it. Sure. That way, you know, some animal won't come by and make a mess and I'll get free food. So the amount of food he ordered was crazy. 2 filet of fish, 2 quarter pounders with cheese, 2 Big Macs, fries, the drink, and 20 chicken nuggets.
A lot of damn food, man. That's sounds like that. What do they call it? The land, sea, and air, or something like that. Have you heard of that?
No.
There's something they used to call the secret menu.
Oh. Like you could just put parts together.
Yeah, it was on a website or something. It was like called the secret menu. You go to different restaurants and ask for either certain things by name or with ingredients to make these like specialty items. And one's called the land, sea, and air, which is literally the burger, the fish fillet, and the chicken all in one sandwich.
Okay.
That's what it made me think of.
That is kind of surprising, but also not. I wonder if they'd be good. I don't know. But yeah, I had chicken, whatever, tenders, nuggets, whatever those things are called. And I ate one of the filet of fish. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with all this food? I just put it in the fridge. I don't know. Watch, it'll probably turn into bricks of something horrifying tomorrow. It'll be gross.
Oh, of course.
He
Somebody's
said,
talking
yeah,
about
I eat like crap when my wife's gone.
Yeah. I think you were... Was it you? Somebody was talking about the Oreos when the guy was blowtorching them.
Oh, I think it was Disparu brought that up, didn't he?
Yeah, but like it was wild because he was blowtorching the Oreos, which weren't affected at all. But literally the polished wood shelf behind it was getting torched and burnt and destroyed. I was like, oh god. Let me catch up with some questions here. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying, well, that's disgusting. Glad I don't eat Oreos.
Sounds like they're similar to Imperial Lords. That could be a way to think of them. They like the ability of telling a salesman to F off if they smell a bad deal. Oh, I guess that makes sense. The wand chooses the wizard, Frost. You got it wrong.
Hey, I've watched the first one of those movies. Give me a break.
Also, this is a good question and leads into a little bit of something here. So, there are areas of the world that don't know about certain gods and worship different pantheons? Are the gods we know about considered something like the Greek gods, or do all people know them? So as of right now, they're the only gods. Like the elves don't have their own pantheon, the goblins don't have their own. These are the gods of all the creatures and all the peoples. This is also the Godlands. This is the area where the gods walked among the people on Erudi. So there is the possibility that we might expand that world map down the road, and there could be other places outside of the Godlands, and who knows? Maybe there are other beings there that we don't know about, but that is not something we're prepared to tackle or explain at the moment. But yeah, but that is why it got the name the Godlands. This is where the gods literally walked among the people, and where the civilizations are all kind of seated.
Yep. And down here, though, in Kiru, past the rain wall, this is one of the civilizations that they kind of like ignored the gods. They don't really care about the gods a whole lot. They've got some gods that they're letting people in, because this is all the barbarians. These are kind of like the, say, take Eastern and Maori and all these other things. These are where all the barbarians live, and they have their own culture where they fight, and they ignored the Godlands. They ignored the war. They cut themselves off. They tried to stay out of it all, and they are now only now allowing some people in. They're like, "Oh, you have gods? What do they do for you?" More along the lines of very confrontational, like, "Why would we want to listen to them? We can fight." And letting people come in and maybe preach to them a little bit, kind of like a place that's been excluded from that kind of stuff, like, getting the ideas of the other people coming in. They've opened their borders. Maybe their downfall, who knows? But they're barbarians. Come on.
Barbarians. Yeah, the gods. Somebody had made I can't remember who it was now. Somebody. I do watch the chat. I listen to what you guys are saying, and I value and appreciate and take into consideration your feedback, all of it. Somebody had made the comment about how they didn't really like how important the gods seem to be to the setting, or how involved they're going to be. So they're very much in the sense of like the Greek gods in a way, where they are a huge influence to life. People see them as being very powerful. They created them. They have the ability to move weather and things like that. So yeah, they're going to have a great influence. And they literally walked among their people and helped shape their history. So like the older times definitely were heavily God influenced. They played a big part in the history of the setting. Going into modern setting though, they still exist. They're still very powerful, but they play a much smaller role in the day-to-day things that are going on in the setting. Which is why you start to see a greater influence from demons and devils and vampires and creatures from the underside and all of this stuff, and humans and elves kind of making their own histories and wars. It's kind of quote unquote our world now, and the gods don't intervene very often. So while they are very involved in the history of the setting, they are less so in the modern day setting. They'll still come into play some of the stories and adventures and things like that, but they're not nearly as impactful as they were.
Yeah, the some of the things that we've got in the lore and the background, everything, it's going to be fun when people start playing around with it, because again, people are going to be free to just ignore it, do whatever they want. But some of it's integrated into these places are going to make, and the stuff that you've put down so far in the adventures, that some of it harkens back to these gods and goddesses and things that have happened, is, I think it's going to be a lot of fun for people to explore. They're going to learn a lot of things, and I think they're going to like it.
I think they will too. I'm noticing, the more we reveal, the longer we go, I can see people getting more and more into it and like really learning the names and asking deeper questions like they are now. So I do feel like they're already kind of diving into it and starting to see what we're building, and most people are responding positively, which is a good sign.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well. All right, this is where the city is. I'm writing some stuff up about these cities. I'm getting a lot of stuff written while we're talking. This is good.
That's true, Chrysanth. At least they didn't leave it at my neighbor's house. There is that.
That is a good point. Lucky people not getting food left at your neighbor's house. Oops. Okay.
So Dragon Noodle
Right
Soup,
now I'm writing up.
vampires, the way you probably should try to think about vampires is twofold. Independently, as individuals, they are very powerful creatures with their own motives and desires and what have you. And yes, they are very powerful. However, they're indirect weapons of demons. The only reason demons made this pact with people to give them this undead life in the first place was because they very specifically want them to prey on people and basically feed their souls to the underside. So the idea of them drinking blood and things like that is all by design. It's not even out of necessity per se. It is something that was designed into the curse to force vampires to have to interact with mortals, because that's the whole point. The only reason the demons allowed this, the only reason they gifted this, is because they want to use vampires against mortals and take their souls. So yeah, the desire to feed on them, their habits about their blood, their desires and instincts, that's all by design. They want them to conflict with mortals and kill mortals and turn them into what they are.
Oh, vampires. Blech. I mean, they're great. Hey, wait a second. I see a coffee cup and a coffin. Wait a moment. I know what you're saying. I get it.
I believe the goddess of the oceans and Kika created the sirens. What about the core races? Did all the gods have a hand in making the elves? Yeah. So especially the first two, the dragons and the elves, definitely every god had a hand in making. They worked on that together. And after the first five, the prime five, then gods started kind of going off and doing their own little pet projects and creating all sorts of various races for different purposes, for whatever they saw a need for in the world, and weren't necessarily coordinating. And that's why they drained the spark of creation, was because they were just off doing their own things. The last spark of creation was rumored to have been taken by Kika, and she actually, it was kind of like she ran out of energy and failed to complete what she was making, and that's how the rumor is that they ended up with halflings. So yeah, that's whether that's urban myth or actual fact, nobody really knows. But that is that's the idea. Is they were off doing their own things, and then they were like, "Well, shit, maybe we should have slowed down a little bit more and given a little bit more thought to everything we were making. Did we really need a race of savage little mini orcs called goblins? Was that something we had to have?" But it is what
Too
it is.
late. Exactly.
Do some people resent
They
the
ran
gods
out
for
of
creating the
Legos.
giants, who were made to lay waste to different races? So the giants weren't necessarily made to lay waste to different races. It was more of so the dragons and the elves resented each other, and there was a lot of conflict over that, and it was boiling over, and eventually it turned into a war. It turned into like a real conflict. It wasn't a drawn out, long term, like constant war like the God Killer War was, but it was more like, okay, we're at war again, now we're not. Now we're at war again, no we're not. And that was the War of Scales in a nutshell. Just these fights that kept flaring up and getting worse and worse. And so first the gods were like, okay, let's put in a third race that'll kind of be industrial and maybe show them new wonders and ways to use that energy that they clearly have. And so the gods came in, or the dwarves came in saying, oh, hey, look, we create things, we craft, we can show you how to craft too. Let us be mediators. That didn't really work out. The dragons didn't like the dwarves either. They saw them as even more usurpers, so they were kind of rude to the dwarves, and the dwarves took offense to that and ended up just siding with the elves, and so that was a fail. And so then finally the gods were like, okay, we're going to need someone who can actually step in and back up what they're saying to mediate this shit, so they created the giants. So the giants were kind of like the big brutes that got in the middle and put one hand on one guy's forehead and one hand on the other guy's forehead and just held them at bay on both sides of the room and say, nope, you're not doing this anymore. And that was kind of their initial role, was to be sort of disruptors and enforce a peace. And over time that role disappeared, and now you've got giants who are kind of like neutral and just exist, and you got some who got bored with their existence and they're quite evil. So that's where giants are now. And of course, there might be some resentment by both elves and dragons, certainly the dragons take particular umbrage with them.
Oops. I have to quickly go check. I keep hearing beeps. I think cats are gathering at the back door here. I'm going to go see if Calvino wants to come in.
Sure. I'll come on cam for a moment.
I won't even turn my camera off, so you can see my chair.
But I will pop back in. How do I? All right. Well, we'll chat for a moment. Chat. It definitely sounds like the gods didn't have nearly as much control as they wanted to. Yeah, I mean, so the keepers came in. They gave the gods this world. They gave the gods this purpose and said, "Go." Stayed around long enough to give them a little bit of guidance, and then just left. So the gods had all this power. They weren't fully aware of how it all even worked. They just knew they had it. And they were left to do that. And nobody knows why. Was it an experiment? Are the keepers just are the gods and Erudi and all that just like one little experiment and one little plaything for them? Was there an actual purpose behind this? Like their motives are so entirely unclear, even to the gods themselves. And so yeah, it was a bit of a learning curve for them too. They think they have a lot more control than they do, and sometimes realize, oh shit, we don't know as much as we think we do.
Calvino, you coming up? I don't know what he's doing. How was your semi-cold food? Nope, I think we lost him.
Nope, I'm still here.
Oh,
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Not bad, just semi-cold.
They had the food on top of the drink, so the drink was sitting in the snow, which is kind of nice, but still, I still got a little cold, but it's not ice cold, so I guess there's that.
How you doing, Calvino? Calvino had to say hello. He was sitting out there with his brother, and they sit on the heat mat together. When I opened the door, Calvino's like, "I'm coming in," and his brother always like smells the basement, and he's like, "Nah." He never comes in the basement. He just doesn't like the ceiling. He hates ceilings. I don't know why.
Hates ceilings. That is a weird thing to hate.
Yeah, when he was a kitten, he used to hate it when I'd turn on like the ceiling fan in the living room. I turned it on, he'd just be like, "Nope." He'd hide under the couch. And if it was off, he was okay. And like in the master bedroom, he's fine because the ceiling fan in there is an enclosed one. The blades are inside a housing, and it just looks like a light fixture. So he doesn't mind that one. But in here, he just, I don't know, he doesn't like the exposed beams or something. He just comes in and he's just like, I don't like it. So he just never comes into the basement. He's just an odd little cat.
He's will go really long periods without ever coming down here. But this last week, well, at least before the snowstorm, she was like down here every night. I don't know what the deal was. And this morning, I finally got back from being trapped up by my work. I came downstairs and it was early morning. I wasn't going to be on stream, so I was just kind of like in my boxers and t-shirt. And I didn't know she was here. She leapt right up on my damn leg and dug her claws in. I was like, "God damn it, Poppy. Why would you do that?"
Because she can. My cats are just going crazy up there.
She can.
What are they doing? It's even freaking Calvino out. Yeah, they're probably skating across the floor again, buddy. Go ahead, have a seat. Or not. Thank you, sir. Uh-huh. 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 So I'm probably gonna go somewhat soon because I usually get up in about let's see, about 4.5 hours work. But I'm gonna try and finish a couple more, like this one paragraph or this entry at least before I have to go. Didn't
So
need
we're
to
probably-
know what psychosis. What?
We're probably good to wrap here in just a bit, anyways.
Oh, okay.
I won't go later than you. When you're ready to go, we'll just hop off. There we go.
Okay. Fun times. Yeah, my cats are definitely skating around on the floor up there. They're just nuts. It's okay, Calvino. They can't get you. There's a whole floor in the way. Where is this?
Let me see if they got any other questions that have popped up. Ross is a vampire. Yes. Yes, he is. I think I'd like him to have a connection to Senna, interest ideas of the gods, magic, and what it would like be if magic didn't exist. Certainly something to explore. I do need to set up. I wanted to do it this week. The snowstorm really screwed me over. I need to set up a little meeting chart for my mythic members. Two Gerald's done. Look at you go. Look at you go. Well, you don't want to think about me and my boxers? Why not?
There we go. Posted. All right. Go. All right, Calvino. You're okay. He's not purring happily. I think he got over the fact that they're running around. And maybe he took it to heart that I told him they can't get through the floor to get him. A dork. There should be evil people like in CCP land where they torture animals that other consider pets for fun. Well, that sounds like the goblins right there.
There'll definitely be evil creatures. Why did you not have twin gods based directly off the Saska sisters? Interesting that you mentioned the Saska sisters. We may or may not have talked to them off camera. They may or may not have some NPCs. Hard to say. Hard to say.
Yeah.
So hard to say if there might be some Saska sister NPCs out there. Bad Erudi, what did I do?
Oh, it probably has something to do with boxers. It's a guess.
Oh, please. You guys know half of us stream pantsless anyways, right? Look at Froste.
I have pants on. I have pants on.
I have pants on right now, too.
It's the only way I can stand having this cat on my lap with his murder mittens.
Well, yeah, you kind of have to. Yeah, you got an army of claw-wielding fiends down there.
Oh, yeah. When he hears a noise he doesn't like, he grips and he's like, "Ooh, okay, I'm all right." Doesn't know we're half.
Incredible.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, I got that entry done. Boom. Look at that. Cool. Well, I mean, I got a whole bunch of stuff written here. I got a few pages of things actually expanded on in this section. So that was good.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And you got so many answers, so many questions, things that you've been wondering. Do you feel better?
Yep. I do. It's good. It's good. And I'll have more questions for next time.
Wonderful.
And I'm sure nobody else will too. Nobody in chat will have any questions. So
wonderful. They'll have plenty, I'm sure of it. If you're not already, please do, though, consider supporting our project. You can do so by going over to our Patreon and becoming a member there for as little as $5 all the way up to the Mythic tier. Mythic tier is the highest level. If you stay in it long enough, you can actually have a powerful NPC character in the universe made in your honor in the universe. I'll work with you closely on it, and we'll come up with something that makes sense with the universe and makes you happy, and I think you'll enjoy what we're doing. So come check it out. We've been posting a lot of new stuff. Some artwork's been shown off. Some lore's been introduced. Next week, I'm going to start posting the iconics. So the iconic legendary characters that I'll be representing each of the classes. Their stories are going to be posted for you guys to read. Yeah, so go check it out. Frost, where can they find you? What will you be up to?
Oh, you can find me here on the Legend Seeker channel. You can find me on Moonskull. You can find me on JJ and Moss's channel. You can find me on JT's channel. You can find me all over the place, but you can also find me in my Linktree items over there. Oh, I see Chrysanthem's a messenger directed. Oh, what did she do?
Oh, Chrysanth, what'd you do?
Well, yeah, you can find me at all those links there, and you can find me again. I'll be doing this again tomorrow by myself from 5 to 7 on these very same channels.
Fantastic. And I'm Erudi. You know where to find me, guys. I'll also be doing some streams on here as well. We're going to have videos coming up soon. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention. The setting name is being voted on. Erudi is currently in the lead. But the top 3 from that poll will then be pushed over to a second poll, and then that'll be the final voting. So whatever, however that second poll goes will be the name of the setting. So if you want to have influence on this, if you want to pick the name for this setting, whatever one you might be interested in on that list, the only way to do it is to become a Patreon member. You can do it at the lowest tier if you want. You can be a $5 supporting member and still vote in the poll. So this is your chance as a founder to come in on the ground level and make history with us on our setting. But yeah, you can find me here. You can find me on Tabletop, obviously. You can find me on Moonskull. I'm going to be at all those places all the time, and I look forward to showing you more of this wonderful universe that we have here building at Legend Seeker. With that, we'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.